Good morning and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. It's always a joy when I can say good morning because I have Sascha Moore here from Sydney, Australia, which is always exciting. Hello, Sascha. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sascha, we've got a lot to chat about today, given where you're at. And we had a pre-catch up a few weeks ago now, and I felt like we could have just talked for days and days in terms of life, leadership, and business. And you're a lifelong learner, as am I. We have something in common in terms of that marketing communications background, but there's also more to us than just that, right? And we had a big chat about that. So, first things first, I wanted to just introduce and acknowledge, what you've established in terms of you've had a profound career. Founder at Create Design and Marketing. You're based in Sydney. It's a boutique B2B agency where you blend strategy, design, PR, and campaigns for clients across financial services, legal, and professional sectors. And the business specializes in strategy led creative from brand and sales assets to integrated marketing programs. But the reason I actually brought up the life leadership business piece is because you and I were chatting around, we've had these amazing careers in and specializing in that communications, marketing, and advertising sense. Well, for me, advertising as such. But there's always been something deeper within us, right? In terms of something where our soul's screaming out to us. And I'm going to hand it over to you because I want to understand your journey in terms of starting this business, but then also what else you're exploring now as part of what's next for you. When you booked in for the pod, I asked a question around what is one unique experience or lived experience in life, leadership, and or business. And this is going to open up the can of worms, but you talked about the power of conscious reinvention via self, a circumstance, and the power of micro decisions. So I've talked enough. I'm going to hand it over to you. Tell us everything.
No, I was enjoying listening to you speak. Yeah, no, it is interesting, isn't it? And I think that part of that lifelong learning bug is that, it's always in you. And it's what tickles you and it's what interests you and it's what sort of gives that extra dimension on life. And I think also as part of being a marketer, you're naturally curious.
Yeah.
And so I think that curiosity piece morphs with time as well. And I think once you're established in your career, how you can contribute is very much correlated with the breadth of your perception. So
Yeah.
in order to, and so that was sort of when I started studying philosophy a little while ago because I thought, you know what, I just feel blinkered and I want to start to
Open it up. Yeah.
quite consciously open that up. And it was really interesting studying philosophy. It's so extraordinary, the link between art and science and thought and math. It's really quite it is quite an interesting journey to go through to be studying that on the side. And what I sort of found with that is it started to fuel different ideas or different perspectives. And so, off the back of that, I started doing a webinar and podcast series called Ignite, which was very much about changing paradigms and changing perceptions and so forth. And I made the commitment to do that, to more walk the talk and actually to put these thoughts into a tangible format. And the more I delved into that series, the more it really was about, initially, it was about empowerment.
Yeah.
What came off an empowerment in business by just looking at things with a different lens.
Yeah.
But really what came off that is that fundamental paradigm shifts are what I find interesting.
Yeah.
And being able to put that in, to actually verbalize what that looks like and put that into framework is for me how I can create impact. So
Yeah.
that impact piece is really now what I'm focused on and what I'm moving towards. And whilst my agency and my history is very much anchored in financial services, it's interesting now to be able to to crystallize that I want to work with individuals and or organizations to create impact. It's a very, very different mindset. And
Yeah.
to then lead that discussion in a way which serves them and serves a broader purpose is really interesting. So that's where that whole conscious reinvention piece, I guess, emerged or bubbled from.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you talk about that blinkered on, and I had a very similar sort of experience in the end because it was like, coming out of the advertising, kind of the role I was in and my previous world in terms of I think it's like you get to a point where it's like something within you is just like almost like I said, I think I mentioned screaming at you. You like it's getting louder and louder and louder. And you can't ignore it. And so then it's kind of like, well, what does this look like in the exploration? But you would probably relate to this, like everyone that you encounter, even in like business, once you start to explore this, I guess, the power of conscious reinvention or just like understanding what's actually going on underneath us or inside of us, you start to notice how everybody else is almost behaving in a way with their blinkers on, for example, but they're not happy or they're not, they're not, happy is probably the wrong word, but they're not feeling fulfilled, right? So it's
Yeah.
interesting the spin you're putting on it and what you're talking around in terms of, working the desire and intention to work with individuals, but also businesses, because I see there's a big opportunity to use all the skills that we've developed in terms of, because it is a psychology game a lot of the time in terms of when we're working with our clients to then come back and almost evolve the way we interact and the way we work with people. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. And I've got this theory, and that's actually one of the reasons I started studying philosophy, because I'm always working on these different theories about life, when just things don't quite make sense, or I want to actually put a framework
Yeah.
around something. One of my theories is that if you look at life 6 degrees counterclockwise, you will open up your world. So what that means in terms of being blinkered is it's so easy just to get in your lane, get in your slipstream, and not actually see anything because you're on auto mode.
Yeah.
But if you consciously look at things for what they are and take it to what they could be, it then puts you in a position of an observer. So then you start to notice where you can actually create something to be slightly different, but have a really tremendous impact. But it's consciously looking at what could this become next, or where is it confined, and what happens if we just loosen that
Grip.
restriction, that grip, just for a minute. And that's now the approach that I actively sort of, you just train your brain. It's almost like cognitive behavioral therapy. You just train yourself to just look at things so slightly differently, but it just opens up so much.
So how do you do that though? Like I love that theory and I love the idea. Like I love it because like to be able to become an observer of your own situation and go, oh my God, why are you letting this bother you so much? Why are you getting so stressed about this? Or why do you continue to stay in your comfort zone and do things the way you've always done them when there's so much, you have so much more potential? Talk me through yourself as, when you take those blinkers off, and how do you get yourself to the observer? Because when you are so in the blinkers, it's kind of quite hard when you're like down here to actually change that mindset. Like what are the like practical tools or tactics you use to pull yourself up and into the observer?
Um, I think awareness is where it starts.
Yeah.
And I think also professionally, I've trained myself to read a room opposed to respond to a situation,
Yeah.
because that's when you can't, particularly in a place of conflict or team dynamics or other, everything is a perception,
Yeah.
right? And so seeing it for what it is opposed to being pulled into what's happening, enables for me to you to be a far more astute participant as well as a solid and grounded leader. And so, very early on in my career, I learned or I made the decision to not get emotionally invested.
Yeah.
So, once you pull yourself out of the pit of what's happening, it means you can see it. And then once you can see it, you can question why somebody's having that response. And then if you understand why someone's having that response, then you can relate to them based on where they're at.
Mm, mm.
So, and it doesn't mean that you don't tune into your emotions. And it's actually the opposite. But I almost compartmentalize it a little bit. It's like what's in front of me, what's required of me, what do I need to do to lift this situation up to its maximum potential, and what is either driving the fear often or the insecurity, or what is driving the resistance.
Yeah, I love that. For me, it's like I look at it like from an illuminating perspective in terms of once you're illuminating, well, what's actually really going on here? Like what's actually happening here? And you're so good. It's so true. I think it's like a superpower from the, industry that you're in and I've been in and I still play in at times, but it's that ability to quickly go in, read a room, understand exactly what's going on, the dynamics, the different personalities, and be like, okay, so this is actually what's happening here. But the same with ourselves in terms of, hang on a second. If I just pause and stop and just kind of, like you say, become aware of actually, is this true or is it not true? To then be able to go, well, actually, is this actually serving me or not? Or is this serving the team dynamics? Or is this serving me as a leader? To then go, well, no. And then, so what do I need to, I look at it from then, what do I need to subtract to then reimagine or create and make it possible, which is exactly what you're talking about. But it's a tricky one because when fear and resistance kick in, and we know that it's the good old amygdala, playing games with us and wanting us to keep us where we're at and hold us back. It's the dinosaur or the 100-year-old part of the brain, right? It's really being able to sit in that uncomfortable, oh, I don't like this. I don't like having to kind of become aware of, well, this is actually what is true, not what I think is, or ignoring. Do you know what I mean? And then that resistance piece. Like, do you agree that there's, that bit's probably the hardest part when you're sitting in this awareness piece, is that this is really uncomfortable?
um I do, but I think it also, truth is just someone's perception, right? So,
Yeah.
and people are going to have varying rigidities or openness to changing that
Yeah.
perception. But I think it comes from, at the end of the day, the intent. If somebody is just hell bent on a perception, they're not going to change. There's not anything you can do about that. But then what I look at is, how can I then use that resistance, or the pull out the benefits of that resistance, to then challenge the concept to make sure it's actually baked as well as it can be baked, or equally how to validate them but remove them as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I love that. Like the resistance for me is like, what if you pushed, what if you stepped through it? Like what's possible on the other side is exactly what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, 100%. And there's nothing worse than the devil's advocate most of the time. However, I think that if you're coming from a place where you're open to hearing what they are saying, it can actually push you much further than where you might have otherwise been, because there's always different
Mm,
perceptions and perspectives. So I guess that's also where the ego and the emotion, if you remove that and you just look at it as an idea. You've come up with an idea, or whoever's come up with it. If you actually just look at it as take it from your ether and take it from your ego and take it from an emotion, you actually just look at it and go, how can this become the most epic version of what this is? Because I'm not personally attached to this.
Yeah.
So therefore, it can move to become much greater because your ego isn't attached.
Involved. Yeah. And is that the impact piece for you? Like that's where you make the big impact, right? The significant impact.
I think impact it's really interesting. So I've actually recently made it my like actual like publicly made it my mission to create impact. And then that's all well and good and sounds wonderful. But then it's like, oh dear, how am I actually going to do that?
I love it. But you've put it out there, right? You've put the what's the
Yeah.
word? You put the manifestation out there. Like
Yeah,
you're just putting
absolutely.
it.
And it's more like, if you say, like, if you in your head, if you say, I'm going to go on a diet, and it's like you can have little cheat days and no one knows about it. But if you say it publicly, you're suddenly sort of
I know.
accountable to that piece. And the reason that I've done that is if we come back to micro decisions,
Yeah.
actually have the accountability, but also the presence of choosing to create impact.
Mm.
So that, and also putting that to the test a little bit, like, is very like no one would notice if you created impact or you did it, but you notice.
Mm. Mm.
So looking at that comes back to what I was just actually considering this week is inspiration versus accountability. So if you are going to choose to do something, a lot of the time, if it's out of your wheelhouse, I think that we sort of wait for this grand inspiration to occur from the heavens. But I think that accountability is how you create impact or whatever you're going to be doing, because once you're accountable and you're committed, then inspiration is sort of like the cousin of
Yeah, it's
accountability.
so true. Accountability is such a big thing for me, like in terms of, especially you would get it as a founder, and then, like what you're like, you've put it out there, what you're planning to do as part of your next chapter. Like it takes accountability. Like when we're kind of just doing it, we've got an idea or we've got this inspiration, and then it's like, oh, I've got all these, I've got it here and I'm thinking this and I'm doing this, but then it's like life gets in the way, like, things happen and then it's like, and then the following week you're like, I haven't started it. Or you've put it out to public that you're going to be making impact in the world, with individuals, with teams, with businesses, whatever. And then it's always on you because weeks later you're like, I haven't touched it yet, or I haven't got to it,
Yeah.
but I've made this big statement. And I think it's also this comes back to what you were talking about before, because we then have our blinkers on as if we go, right, I've done that. But then it's almost like becoming the observer again to go, because I don't know if you do this, I'm jumping around with this one a bit, but I'll quite often say I'm doing something, but then if I haven't got to it yet, I then beat myself up a bit as if just that oh my gosh, I've put that out there or I've said I'm doing this, like, social and content, and you see everyone on LinkedIn and then you kind of like, but is anyone really saying, Belinda, you haven't posted that this week or you haven't done that this week, right? It's always that we're so fixated now on we've said we're doing it, but what if we just become the observer, remove that, kind of ego, remove all of it? I think there's that bit, but then I think there's also having that accountability to be able to actually do what you've intentionally decided to do, if that makes sense. I don't know, like
Yeah, no,
that's what you,
100%. And I
yeah.
think it comes back to why you're doing it.
Yes.
And I think that's where the inspiration piece comes in. So, if for me to create impact, the way that that translates, it is writing, doing interviews, doing recordings or so forth, and to dissect a topic which is agnostic.
Yeah.
So, like the conscious reinvention piece that we were talking about initially, that the whole notion of that is to create impact by changing how people think marginally to then enable them to be magnificent. So, on that note, it's about magnifying your essence. So, really distilling who you are to be the best form of yourself. So
Yeah.
then it can be magnified.
Oh, I love that.
And that's then quite fun because once I got over the allergic reaction to committing and having the accountability, then I was like, oh my God, what am I going to write about? Or what on earth am I going to talk about? All of a
Sorry,
sudden,
did you just quickly, did you announce it to like, where did you announce it? Did you announce it on social media? Like, what did, or have you,
yeah, no, I announced it on LinkedIn. And I was actually hoping that no one would respond. It was almost like now I've put this out there and I've done my bit, but then no one's responded to it. So then I haven't really. So then I think subconsciously I can have it as a get out of jail free card to say I'm doing it, but not actually do it. And then I had people respond, and I was like, oh God, now I'm gonna actually do this.
it's like, there's so much like as part of this though as well around society and the pressure we have as well. Like you've talked around attachment, emotional attachment, ego, etc. Do you feel like for you, and I do want to come to the power of micro decisions because I think that's super important as well. But as part of this, do you also feel like that's pressure for you because you put it out there in public that you need to do it? And is that coming from, and please don't, this is not being disrespectful in any way, shape, or form, but do you think that's coming from a place of ego, or do you think that's just coming from a place of accountability? Because there's accountability and there's ego, right? Like in terms of,
100%.
yeah,
And I think it comes back to the intention.
yeah,
I know in myself if I am accountable, I will do it.
yeah, same, yeah,
Like it's that age-old thing of like, if you're exercising with a friend, you're going to go because you've made the commitment, or if you've booked into a class, you go to a class. But well, for me, if you haven't, I'll be like, my bed is just so much more comfortable for the next hour than doing this. So just in terms of again knowing thyself,
yeah,
for me to really be committed, I have to be accountable. And
yeah,
I have to not allow myself the get out of jail free card, which is being accountable just to myself, because it's just too easy for life to get in the way.
yeah,
So now that I have put it out there and I have committed to it, it's what I need in terms of the framework and the structure to
good,
then deliver.
yeah,
And what and I also it was quite an interesting moment because I was like I feel instinctively that now today is when I actually do this, and that's when I did it. I didn't script it. I haven't planned it. It's very unlike me.
I love it though, because that's you being you yourself. Like that's you being true to you.
100%.
That's you being magnificent you. That's you pulling yourself out of being, becoming aware, not, being that observer. I think this is the other part of it, right? We all need structure and systems, but I know, like using LinkedIn as an example, when I go on there and just see all that I see. I almost just like then completely look the opposite way as if to say like I've got no creative mojo. I've got nothing to share. So I've got to be in a situation or a position where the load's subtracted from me. I'm feeling like, yes, like you say, it's not scripted. It's just spontaneous. It's intuitively led. It's free flowing. And so I find, how do you I call it being consistent in a non-linear way in terms of the minute you start going, right, I'm doing it on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, like you get so structured you're almost taking away all the brilliance that you're talking about right now, where you've just gone, I'm just going to put it out there.
No, but I think it's about again the intention. So the intention is how can I help shift paradigms?
Yeah,
So therefore, it makes you diligent about looking at things from a perspective which is detached. So it's
yeah,
almost like training your brain to act and think in the way that you're wanting to become.
yeah,
So then, and then that, recovering perfectionist side of me is like, well, if I've committed to do it, like I will do it. And so, but it's funny from that commitment, so many different ideas have come to me this week, and so many different observations have come to me this week. And I thought I would really struggle with content, or I'd struggle with the perception, but it's actually just opened this floodgate of new horizons because you've committed to just
Doing it.
doing that one really small thing.
So have you started like have you put it out there and you're now just
Yes, yes. So yeah, put it out there last week just to make the statement, and then sort of had like a moment over the weekend going, I can't believe it. Can I actually just retract that because it just is quite an overwhelming concept. And then I was like, all right, well, we've now moved past those anger, denial, depression, acceptance pieces, and I was like, okay, well.
off you
what does
go?
what does impact actually then look like? And so what I actually recorded yesterday, the piece that I'm going to release this week, which was the accountability piece.
Yeah.
So and anyone who's waiting to be inspired, I think without realizing it, it's the ultimate procrastination.
Yeah, I love that. How do you make yourself accountable? Like, have you committed to like you're gonna like put a video out there once a week? Like, what's your accountability then for you? Like in terms of, and I don't want to steal your thunder from your video, so
Oh
for
no, that's
you're
okay.
saying B, let's just hold because it's about to be posted. But how do you make yourself accountable? And the reason I ask this is because you've got the business you've got, you are super successful. It's a lot of time because it's marketing, it's advertising, it's communication, like campaigns, it's a lot of effort, etc. You've got a family, you're juggling a lot. How do you then ensure that you stay accountable and find that time? I'm always intrigued by this.
For me, this is actually really energizing.
Yeah.
And that I think is also one of the reasons I started the degree in philosophy as well, because without realizing it, I think I was so consumed with the weight of logistics.
Yeah.
And whether that's running the business, whether that's the work I'm doing, whether it's family or other, it's just a lot all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And it was I was getting to a point that it was just unfulfilling is not the right word, just onerous. And there was no
Really.
levity, and there was no reprieve either. And I gave a lot of thought as to where that reprieve can sort of come from. And without intending to, I read a book that was recommended to me, which was about the Stoic principles of philosophy. And I was like, oh my God, this is actually what I meant to be doing. I meant to be studying philosophy because this book actually summarized everything that I thought, but I hadn't put into the framework. So I guess once, and that studying philosophy, like that's when I started to get that little buzz, that serotonin hit, because all of a sudden it was opening up a part of my mind that was really dormant, that I had forgotten how inspiring it was just to really tap into that curiosity. So for me, this is fun. This
Yeah,
is
it's energizing, but I think it's not just your mind. It's like it's cracked open your soul. It's what you're feeding your soul. You're feeding your mind, your body, your soul. Your soul's being saying to you, "Come on, Sasha, give me something." And that's for me
precisely,
that louder calling. And so
yeah.
what I'm hearing is, and maybe you've talked about this or in the video or not, but like accountability can also equal your energy. And when your energy or, that kind of is energy is feeling high or good, you
A
you,
hundred percent.
you want to, to do it. Like you just do it. It doesn't even it's effortless. It's like for me, it's getting into that flow state. It becomes effortless. It's not,
Yeah,
yeah,
completely. And it is effortless. And it actually, in terms of actual time, it takes no time.
yeah.
But what it does do is just, um, planning something in your subconscious and then just having these little sparks just fly around whenever they're ready to is is really, really satisfying. It's like, oh my God, here's an article, here's an article, here's an article. So I've committed to writing a column each day, either doing a recording or a column each day.
How
And
long for? Or just
for
ongoing?
28 days straight
Oh, okay, great.
and see what happens after that. And then equally, I sort of feel that it doesn't necessarily have to have a purpose of doing so. It doesn't have to have a set outcome, but the next opportunity or others will, I feel, open organically through whatever, through touching somebody and changing their perspective or other. So ultimately, it's to create impact. But then from a professional perspective, this is what I want to be known for. I want to be known for challenging status quo. I want to be known for big ideas because then the more that's becomes synonymous with my approach, the more that will be what I naturally will start to do professionally as well.
I love that. It's so cool. It's almost, yeah, it's so inspiring to hear that you committed to 28 days straight. I committed to a 12-week series and I called it a 12-week series. And I'm like week 7, I think, in, and I'm, 3 weeks ago. Like, so I've had to switch it up. But I think that's okay too at times when, like, I think 12 weeks is, like, being kind to yourself as well. Like if you miss a day for some unforeseen reason.
100%. It's not the rigidity, it's just more the pattern setting.
Yeah, it's 28 days can be 28 days done in 36 days, for example. And so
Yeah,
that,
100%.
that's for me the
So,
non-linear consistency. Like that's where I'm really kind of going. That is what consistency is. It doesn't have to be like that rigid, what we're talking about, A to B, like exactly what you're saying.
and I think also it's just interesting. And I think the world is starved of interesting discussions.
100%.
And I think the sort of the upside of doing this as well is when somebody says, "What have you been doing?" It's nice to actually be able to respond and go, "I wrote this article about," and because I feel like that would be something that they'd be interested in.
Yeah, which is a great point in terms of, like that whole, whenever you ask someone, what have you been up to? How's work? What's going on? The first question is how's work? Or, how's family or whatever. But like to be able to talk about something that is like again, it's coming from the inside out. It's something that is fueling, feeding your soul and everything else. Like it kind of it's just a great way to be, right? And like you say, we need more of that in the world. We need more of that in society, given that every other day we're waking up to bad news. Like you look at only what's going on around the world right now, and it's depressing. And so, how do we spark within everybody the ability to, like you say, be magnificent? I say shine your brightest. Like that's what we need more of. And imagine the impact we could make if we had more of that going on in the world. Everyone would be so much more, they'd be looking up versus everyone at the moment. We tend to look down, like, you know what I mean? Like, Sasha, I've got one final question for you. You talked around the power of micro decisions. Can you just share a little bit about that too, please?
Yeah, so this is something I feel so strongly about, and it's also coming from that true awareness piece. Once you're aware of And once you're coming from a place of observation, it's extraordinary how quickly you can see every tiny little decision. And so I call them micro decisions. So the power of a micro decision is so instrumental to your minute, your hour, your day, your life, because a lot of the time people feel decisions are made for them or they'll make a big decision or other, but they disregard all of the tiny little micro moments that have gotten to that place. So every micro moment is, am I going to choose path A, path B, path C? So, say for instance, with this impact piece, coming from the decision to make an impact, it means at every micro moment of the day, as it's presented to me, I can choose whether or not to do that or
Or
not.
not.
Equally, if I'm going to say I'm going to be healthy, like that micro moment to stay in bed or get up and go for a walk, it's every single micro moment that leads you to through that day.
Mm.
And if you're aware of those micro moments, every single minute becomes precious. Every single minute becomes productive or positive. Or you might just have a moment that you decide you just need to check out. Like I had this burnout day a few weeks ago, and I was like, I literally am not moving today. I am not thinking, I'm not moving. I just need rest. So my micro moment was to go, I'm listening to my body. I'm completely resting. I'm not doing a damn thing, opposed to what I should technically be doing, which is running around, doing this, pushing through it, or so on and so forth. So the power of that micro moment actually gives you reprieve, but makes, again, back to the accountability, makes you aware of your choice. So therefore, it becomes the decision. Do I want to work with this person? Do I want to spend time with this friend? Do I want to do an activity? Like, is it really serving me? Do I need to do that? Do I want to do that? So it
Love
actually just
that.
puts you in the driver's seat, and it removes the word that I'm most allergic to of all, which is should. And it takes should out of the equation. And the only reason that I think a micro moment works for a should is if it aligns with your value set. So I should do this actually.
Yeah.
So it's just being aware of every single thing that you do. And even as simple as, like, you're absolutely starving and you're looking at a burger or you're looking at sushi. It's like, well, if I'm going to really choose that health piece, I'm going to choose the sushi. You know what I mean? So it's more being your own accountability coach. And it sounds very boring, but it's just a way, just I feel like no matter what's happening in your life, it's a really nice way just to be in control of yourself and to be choosing your best life in all of these little moments that present to you that you see because you are aware of them.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I did two yesterday actually, and I love the whole micro piece because it's like taking those micro breaks like during the day, right? Like, but the micro decisions, like, one was I had a full day. I had a meeting last night and I just went, you know what? I actually need to spend time with my puppy. I need to take him for a walk. I can't do it today. It's just not possible. So I chose to reschedule, which was perfect, right? And then the
Yeah.
other one was exactly that from a micro step perspective, or micro step, right, micro decision perspective was I had a choice last night where like I said, I'd had a full day. I could have just kept going and pushed myself through. And once upon a time I would have, like back to your burnout piece. But I made that micro decision to just to close my laptop down for the night. And exactly what you said, I just laid on my bed and just cuddled up into my little puppy, and we just and I just shut my eyes, and it was the best thing possible for me to do because Rome didn't burn overnight. Nothing happened. Like, and I think we just
100%.
we forget about this, but the micro decisions. It's like, and I think that was why I, called out step, because that micro decision allows you just to take the next step forward and the ability to bounce forward versus, like making it like should, could, da, 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 da. Like, I really love that. And I think we need to see more of that as well in life, in leadership, and in business. It's a brilliant idea, and you need to do a whole video on that, or a whole article
Thank
on.
you. I'll add it to my little list.
Yeah, add it to your little
My
list.
little, I've got like a little black book of ideas because I'm like, how delicious just to put this all in a little black book.
Sasha, how do we find out more about you, and how do we get on the 28-day Sasha's making a huge impact in the world? Like, where do we find this?
Well, just connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll just be posting videos regularly, and I've submitted a few pieces. We'll see if they get published. I'll post them as well, and yeah, watch this space.
Yeah, so exciting. So exciting. And any final last wise words, tips for the audience?
Back to the micro decision piece, and where we first started to talk about was this conscious reinvention of self and circumstance. And that relates back to the micro decisions. So one of my theories is that you're reinventing yourself all the time. You're evolving all the time. Things are changing all of the time. But you're either in the driver's seat or you're responding to that. So with the micro decisions, if you look at yourself as you are constantly reinventing yourself, you're constantly evolving yourself, you're constantly becoming who you are choosing to be, opposed to responding to what's happening to you. That's really what my ultimate goal would be with the impact piece that I'm talking to, is to have that shift of paradigm, to create those micro moments, to then constantly be the person, your best authentic self. So then you can be magnificent.
I love it. Well, we're always shaping and reshaping. That's my whole formless piece, right? We're always forming, reforming, reshaping, and yeah, we're continuously evolving. Look at us. We're both continuously evolving. Like where we were, like,
Absolutely.
back in the, from an advertising marketing perspective or comms to now, like it's possible. Anything's possible. What's that? I love that Audrey Hepburn quote. Nothing's impossible. Nothing. What is it? Everything's anyway. Look, I always forget it, but my mum always reminds me of it that anything is possible. Sascha, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to go and have a look at your announcement on LinkedIn. You've got me intrigued and curious, and I look forward to seeing the huge impact you're intending to and will do and will make in the world. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun to speak with you.
No, thank you.